In this episode, we're going to go over the top 9 disturbing footage and photographs with shocking backgrounds. You won't want to miss this one. On a chilly night in October of 2022, in the small town of Alcones, nestled in Oldschool commune north of Santiago, Chile, among the deserted streets, something sinister would reveal itself. It was a night just like any other. It was just past midnight, and a local restaurant security camera caught something on film that would defy explanation. Looking closer, grainy footage shows what appeared to be a stray dog just trotting along the empty street. However, if we look closer, the canine approaches a bush at a T-junction. Something changes. The dog slows down, and then, right before your eyes, it seems to grow larger. Moments later, from behind that very same bush, a figure emerges. But it's not a dog anymore. This thing is hunched over, standing on 2 legs. As it moves away from the bush, it straightens up, and it looks just like a man. It's as if this stray dog has somehow shape-shifted. Now, what's really fascinating is that this footage was captured in South America, and as many of you are aware, South America is a paranormal hotbed. There are so many sightings and weird stuff going on, it's just hard to encapsulate it in one episode. In fact, there is so much that I could do an entire series on South America alone. However, many speculate that whatever was captured in this footage is actually a nagual. So these are supposed to be personal guardian spirits that few Mesoamericans believe to reside in certain animals, such as birds or deer, and supposedly there are some regions where these spirits can shapeshift to carry out malevolent acts. Now, another thing I find personally strange is that while the footage was taken back in 2022, it did not go viral until this year, just recently, in fact. And interestingly, there is speculation that this is actually manipulated footage or the product of AI. But folks, it's important to remember that in 2022, the public did not have access to remotely decent AI text-to-video services. I mean, even now with popular tools like Runway or Luma Dream Machine, it's pretty far from perfect. And that's as of this year. However, others have speculated that it was simply a man carrying a dog away in his arms, and I don't really see that. Maybe you guys do. My opinion on this is that it's just weird. I would strongly advise everybody in this day and age where we have access to video and image manipulation to take things with a grain of salt because, you can never really be sure. Now, on the other hand, if this is genuine, original footage, it appears to have captured something beyond what we know as everyday life, and perhaps it really did capture a skinwalker or a nagual on camera. Unfortunately, what the footage truly shows remains inconclusive. On August 31st of this year in 2024 in Argentina, a young worker whose name is being withheld for privacy reasons was working with his fellow coworkers on a farm just like any other night. And after a little while into the shift, this young man began operating a tractor and harvesting sugarcane. And he's doing his job nonchalantly. It's just a regular night. Now nearby, one of his coworkers was also driving a truck doing the same thing. And this young man needs to relieve himself after harvesting for a while, and seeing as he's out here in the middle of the field with no bathroom nearby, he decided he would get up and just urinate next to the tractor. So as he's getting off the tractor to do this, something catches his eye from above, and as he looks up at a reaction, he sees this dark shape falling from above, and then as startling and quick as it happened, it took the form of a person. And trust me, it's very bizarre. And terrified by this sudden shape or person appearing, he tried to return to the tractor and was immediately attacked. He was grabbed and then violently dragged several meters away from the vehicle and was beaten unconscious and left face down. And while this was going on, the other coworker near him was not paying attention to this young man who had gotten out of the tractor. He was just going about his usual job. And after a while, he noticed the young man's tractor not moving and began to suspect something had happened. After some time, he got out of the truck to investigate and found him face down on the ground. Thinking he had fallen or something bad had happened, he immediately got the young man medical attention. And what's really disturbing is after this young man had regained consciousness, he was incredibly shaken and trembling. And all of his coworkers were very concerned, and he described in great detail how something invisible had attacked him, beat him, and then dragged him. What's worse is that his account had evidence to go along with it. He actually showed signs of pain, and when he lifted his clothing, these strange marks were there. After this event, all the farm workers became very concerned. They were very fearful and cautious and now had to go back out and do their work, heightened anxiety that something was going to happen. The conclusion that many of these workers came to is that this was a duende. In many Latin American cultures, a duende is essentially just a dwarf or a gnome. Still, these aren't your silly little bearded lawn gnomes that we know here in America. They are sinister, malevolent entities that aim to harm and kill, and fortunately for this young man, he survived. Now, of course, whether or not it was actually a duende that had attacked him, and whether or not one of these was captured on this footage here that you are seeing, unfortunately, remains a mystery. On August 19th, an airline pilot flying over the Atlantic Ocean at 35,000 feet spotted something strange. And guess what, folks? He wasn't alone. His captain saw it too, and they watched as these two orbs of light hovered near each other, moving in ways that didn't make sense for your typical satellites or aircraft. This pilot, who goes by the username That Flying Guy on Reddit, decided to share his experience. He posted a video of the objects, captured right from the cockpit of his A320 Frontier plane. In his post, he described how these UFOs moved at incredible speeds, stopping and hovering instantaneously. It was like nothing he had ever seen before. Now, interestingly, flight tracking data confirmed that this pilot's flight, FFT 3572, took off from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and was over the ocean at the same altitude he reported. In fact, he revealed that he was flying right over the Grand Bahamas International Airport in Freeport when he witnessed these suspicious objects. He explained that they always see satellites and how they move, but these are not satellites. And throughout the night, the pilot and his captain kept seeing these orbs. One would show up, then another out of nowhere. And in fact, after posting, other Reddit users started chiming in and saying they'd seen similar things. Now, obviously, UFOs are a very widespread phenomenon, so none of this is really all that surprising. But of course, there are skeptics, and rightfully so, because we shouldn't believe everything we're shown or told about. But some suggested that this could have been balloons or drones, and others have even pointed out that the objects in the video, well, they don't seem to be moving abnormally. I mean, sure, there's always the possibility of stars, which can reflect rainbow-like colors when light passes through a turbulent atmosphere. Christian Stempian from the National UFO Reporting Center explained that they generally take pilots at their word when they say they see something unusual, because they're highly trained and used to identifying all kinds of things in the sky. And he noted that the video didn't show the objects moving at incredible speeds and then stopping instantly, which is a key sign of a true UFO. So while the video evidence isn't conclusive, the pilot's testimony is compelling. Similar sightings reported across the country make you wonder what's really out there in the skies above us. For now, the mystery of what was truly captured that day remains unsolved. This next one is just plain creepy. Our story takes place on August 11th, about a month ago. It was in the dead of night, around 2 a.m. at a cemetery, specifically in Jardines de Montesacro in Colombia. Now, the footage was taken by 2 security guards who have had this job for a while, and I'm sure before this footage, they were probably prepared for another Monday night of nothing happening. But folks, that's not what happened. They were startled at some point because they saw this woman they claimed was actually a spirit. Now, the reason why they believed that is even stranger. The alleged spirit of this woman can be seen in this footage clear as day, mind you, and eerily, she's just standing there, still as can be. Now, apparently, she kept repeatedly asking the guards for help, but wouldn't respond to them when they responded to her. Stranger still was that she was actually right up against an electrified fence. And I'm not talking inches away or anything like that. I mean, literally, she was touching it, and it didn't do anything. And she just stood there perfectly still, watching them and staring at these guards while not saying anything. And you could even hear these guards' voice, just how panicked and freaked out they are by what's happening. Now, oddly, this went on for several minutes before it just suddenly vanished. And even stranger than that is that the footage has been analyzed, the guards were questioned, and we're not really left with anything concrete that could point us toward this being a hoax of some kind. The guards who experienced this stand by what it is they saw and experienced, and it really is, if it is genuine, just a grim reminder that the barriers between this world and the other are far more thin than we realize. Sadly, though, we'll never know who this spirit was or why it appeared there in the first place. On a warm day in September 2023, veteran ufologist Jaime Maussan stood before Mexico's Congress and presented two strange corpses that would spark an international controversy. These alleged alien bodies from Peru would become known as the Nazca mummies, kicking off nearly a year of heated debate and wild speculation, but the story isn't over. Just recently, new footage emerged depicting three more of these bizarre specimens, including what appears to be a severed alien skull. Now, the video in question was recorded by a group of anonymous Peruvian tomb raiders, as they're called, and these same folks allegedly unearthed most of the dozen or so specimens that have surfaced thus far. In shaky handheld phone footage, there are two corpses, each standing about 5 feet tall, and they don't really look human at all. Like the seemingly oversized and elongated skull shown in the video, both mummies are covered in this strange white powder. Well, it turns out that it's fossilized algae, consistent with what we've seen in other examples over previous years. Now, I'm not saying these are aliens, but you've got to admit that it's really strange. The video itself was obtained by a man by the name of Josh McDowell, who's a former Colorado prosecutor, and he's assembled a senior American forensic expert to investigate this. One member of that team is Josh's own father, Dr. John McDowell. In an exclusive interview, he described the crazy obstacles they're facing, like diplomatic, legal, and scientific hurdles that need to be cleared before they can properly analyze these mummified entities in U.S. labs. Now, of course, there's a lot of controversy surrounding these, and not everybody is convinced these are actually alien bodies. In fact, critics have proposed a couple of theories. Now, besides the elaborate, flat-out hoaxes, others suspect they might be the remains of indigenous people who practiced ancient head-binding rituals. But obviously, for more concrete answers, we're going to need a lot more invasive examinations to know for sure. Now, already, the team has done preliminary tests in Peru, which include X-rays and CT scans, but they're pushing for permission to bring the specimens to the United States for more thorough analysis. And now, unfortunately, they can't just ship these specimens over to the United States. It's really not that simple. There are international laws about trafficking archaeological artifacts, and not to mention cultural sensitivities to consider. Plus, there's also maintaining a proper chain of custody for tests. And one of the biggest challenges is, of course, contamination. You see, carbon dating, which is how scientists typically determine the age of ancient specimens, can be thrown off by even tiny amounts of outside carbon. And if these really are alien bodies, that would make dating them even trickier. Now, I'm going to stop here and say that I had the chance to interview L.A. Marzulli a few months back, and he's good friends with Jaime. Here's his opinion on the matter. Is Jaime Maussan a fraud, or are those real?
Jaime Maussan is a friend.
Jaime, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, my pronunciation.
Jaime is a friend. Jaime let us use a lot of his UFO material in our film. Once again, there's another film. It's in our Watchers, physical evidence. And Richard Shaw and I flew to Mexico. We spent 3 days with Jaime Maussan. there's a whole film and with Jaime's stuff. Jaime's a friend. That's number one. I told Jaime with those alien bodies, I said, Jaime, I've got a guy across the pond who's is an expert when it comes to radiology. He's an expert radiologist. He took one look at the x-rays. He said, this is a fraud. And then I said, Jaime, remember the fairy that you gave us? And we debunked it. It was a construct. I think Jaime is well-meaning. And I think just like the fairy, he spent $20,000 to get that thing. But when Javier brought it out of Mexico and we got it with Javier in the room, we had three veterinarians in that room. We took an x-ray of it and we all thought it was real, including the veterinarians. So the fairy is on this table, on this little plastic tray. And I go, what's this? And I take a piece of foresight, pick the thing up, and the veterinarian goes, that looks like a matchstick with epoxy on the end of it. Then we went back and we looked at the x-ray, and all of a sudden we realized, oh my gosh, it's a construct. I was on the phone with Property Watchers, with Skywatch TV, and Jaime Maussan. Stop the presses. It's a hoax. It's a construct. It's someone created this thing. Then we took it up to the Natural History Museum in Santa Barbara, and we had it sat down with a guy, a scientist, who completely destructed the whole thing and told us how it was created. It was a taxidermist that did it. So, I mean, all that to say that, there were a couple of people who, I always knew it was a fake, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but,
right.
but you didn't do the research. We did.
Right.
It's so easy, Monday morning quarterback, right? To sit there and go, oh, I knew it was a fake. Well, we didn't know, and that's why we got it out of Mexico and we brought it up here. So in regard to the alien bodies, I said, Jaime, the x-ray that you're showing is sort of a third generation. You give me the originals, I can debunk this or prove it in an hour, because I got a world-class radiologist who will come on the record. He's already looked at the third generation x-rays and stated to me privately, because he won't go public, but to me privately, it's a construct. It's a fake. So I love Jaime. He's a good man. He's a brother. He got duped with the fairy. In my opinion, I think he's getting duped with these so-called bodies.
So does that mean these are fake too? I'm not sure, and I'll leave it up to you to decide. Unfortunately, the identity of these mummies remains a mystery. Our next photograph takes us into the home of an individual who has lived in a house for 15 years and claims they've always heard noises they couldn't explain. In fact, this person used to joke that there was a spirit in the house. However, they quickly learned that something truly lurks in their home. A few weeks ago, about mid-July of 2024, they were sitting downstairs having a chat with their mother when they noticed this notification sound go off. Perplexed, this person looked at their phone and realized that it was the camera upstairs that took a picture. This is because their camera is a motion detection camera, which takes a picture when it senses motion, and wouldn't you know it, this is the image it took. Creepy does not do it justice, and strangely, you would probably expect this from a really old home. Still, this place was built in '98, so it's a relatively newer construction. Additionally, all of this person's family never got confirmation that someone died in this house or not. What do you guys think? On May 8th, 1986, a woman named Janet Moore was driving her car along the A30, which is a major road in Cornwall, and she was on her way to work when she noticed something strange out of the corner of her eye. So she glanced over to her right and saw a massive black cat standing on the side of the road. Now, Janet, who had lived in this area for a long time, knew the wildlife, and she was aware there were no big cats. But there it was, something she couldn't deny, because in front of her was a puma-looking animal. As it crouched down, it stared at her, and then it bolted across the road in front, narrowly avoiding hitting it, and you can imagine she was in shock. And in fact, a woman by the name of Gemma Smith claimed to have caught a glimpse of this cat on camera near the notorious Bodmin Moor. Gemma and her family were exploring the grounds of the Lanhydrock House, a National Trust property in Cornwall, when they saw what she described as no average house cat, scaring deer in the estate's grasslands. Now, she managed to capture a video clip of this mysterious black animal, but admitted that her phone's camera didn't do it justice. No, you don't say. Her footage, of course, sparked speculation that it might indeed show the legendary beast of Bodmin Moor. And she explained that they were halfway up from the manor house when they saw it, and even from that distance, it was clear that it was a big cat. Now, Gemma mentioned that they had spotted a pair of deer on their way up, and the female deer kept looking in the direction of this thing before bolting away. Now, even from these images, it does look like just a normal house cat, so we have to take that into consideration. And the idea of big cats roaming the UK is not as far-fetched as it may seem, because between 2010 and 2015, there was a whopping 455 sightings of large cats across the country, with Norfolk leading the pack with 57 sightings. Folks, is it possible all these people are crazy? Maybe. However, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs has consistently denied the existence of wild living big cats in the UK because they claim that there has been no credible evidence presented to natural England, dating back to the 90s. So, what do you think? Could there really be a big cat lurking in the shadows of Bodmin Moor? Or is it just a figment of people's imagination? The mystery remains unsolved. In July of 2024, a woman named Stephanie was out romping around in the woods like she normally did, and on this day, her plan was to go and hike and take some photographs of the wildlife around her. It was around midday, and it couldn't have been a more perfect day to adventure. After hiking for about an hour, Stephanie reached a small clearing where there was a large set of boulders that she could sit and rest. So she takes out her water, and as she's drinking, she notices behind her that the area is more open than she thought. In fact, she even noticed movement. There were a few does just casually grazing not too far away. Now, realizing this was the perfect photo opportunity, she quickly pulls out her phone and snaps a couple pictures. And happy with what she got, she looks down at her phone to review her shots, and her attention is immediately pulled back in front of her now because she hears rustling. And she's shocked to see this small, hairy-looking child not even 100 feet away. What's worse is the deer she just photographed are intently staring at this child. Quickly, she snaps another photograph before this hairy person flees off into the woods. She has no idea what it was she just captured, but is just convinced that it was a person in a costume. Well, later on, she would post this to Facebook because she didn't know where else to go or turn to for answers. I mean, come on, guys, don't you get your answers from Facebook? On a more serious note, several people commented that they believe this photograph is genuine evidence and shows a juvenile Bigfoot. Now, I've never personally seen a juvenile Bigfoot myself, but if this is a genuine photograph, it is pretty dang interesting. Others, though, were not so sure this was genuine, especially due to the fact that there was little to no context in addition to the photograph, like the exact location, time, etc. However, even Stephanie herself believes that this very well could be a baby Sasquatch simply due to the nature of her experience. Unfortunately, whether Stephanie is hoaxing this photo or it's completely genuine will remain a mystery for the time being. And our last story of today takes place in 2024. An anonymous man in Washington state who had been having a rough time with life as of late decided that he needed an out. It was spring, and with the beautiful weather, he decided that now would be the best time to go away for a few days alone in a cabin in the woods to escape from his busy life and de-stress. He loaded his truck up and headed out to the cabin, and he couldn't be more pleased. It was a small one-man cabin with a nice bench out front, surrounded by wilderness for miles. He quickly unloaded all of his supplies and quickly settled in. The first night that went by, he made a fire in the fireplace and just sat there to relax, and he almost drifted off into this meditative state. Something that stuck out to him that was odd but wasn't concerning is that usually when you're in the woods, you hear the sounds of crickets and night wildlife. Even more so because this was in spring, but he didn't hear any of that. In fact, it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. But he didn't let that bother him, and in fact, shortly after, he went off to bed. Now the next day, it was another peaceful venture in the woods all by himself. That morning, as he made himself breakfast over the open fire, he made an additional observation. There doesn't seem to be much wildlife around him at all, and there's not really any birds chirping or squirrels running around. He kept thinking how odd this was, but he didn't let that bother him. And the day progressed into the night as it had the day before. And so on the second night, he's sitting by the fireplace and relaxing again. And he's starting to feel pretty tired. And so right before he gets up, he notices a feeling he has not had since he came here, that he's being watched. I'm sure many of you out there might know what I'm talking about, but it is a very distinctive feeling. And out of reaction, he starts looking around because this is a very odd feeling when you're alone in a wood cabin. And immediately, he's shocked and terrified because right there, looking at him through the window is a face that he could only describe as not human. And within seconds of being frozen, he quickly pulls out his phone and snaps a couple photographs. Now, whatever was looking at him appeared to be interested in him briefly. Although it was never elaborated how long before it stepped back into the night. I assume this only happened for maybe 5, 10, or 20 seconds. But he quickly retreated to the bedroom and was so terrified the rest of the night that he just lay awake, replaying the events over and over. Interestingly, the sounds of the forest had returned the following morning. That makes you wonder, doesn't it? Well, after returning home, he uploaded these photographs to a Bigfoot Facebook group, convinced that what he had captured was the real deal. And wouldn't you know it, the post quickly garnered a lot of attention. Many other people with their own encounters and experiences with Bigfoot chimed in continuously, explaining that these were very compelling photographs. In fact, some of the most compelling they'd ever seen. And this sort of validation from other eyewitnesses who've experienced nearly the same thing makes you wonder. However, because of the nature of the photographs, they caught the attention of several outside sources. For example, a YouTube video uploaded by Unexplained Mysteries also covered the story, and as you can imagine, the commenters gave it a lot of flack. The largest downside to this is the image quality and the complete lack of video evidence. But if this story is true, and he could snap a couple of photographs at the moment, then this is all we really have. Now, whether or not this man's story is true remains unknown, but it's certainly creepy considering the Pacific Northwest, mainly Oregon and Washington, have a deep history of Sasquatch and Bigfoot encounters. And because you guys made it this far into the video, I want you to all comment below pics or it didn't happen. So that way I know who made it to the end of the video and who didn't. And if you guys enjoy storytelling like this, where we dive into strange cases of the mysterious and supernatural, then what are you waiting for? Smack that like and subscribe button for more content just like this. And remember, as always, I love you all, keep an open mind, and I'll see you guys in the very next video.